The year is 2014. Ellen DeGeneres had broken Twitter with her Oscar selfie earlier in the year. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge had swept the nation as we all united to raise awareness for a good cause. Guardians of the Galaxy released that summer and introduced us to a new superhero ensemble as we all awaited Avengers Age of Ultron the following year. And you're sitting at home, bored because you bought Nintendo's newest console, the Wii U, and realized that you didn't have many games to play. That is, until you see this weird meme of Luigi glaring menacingly at his nemesis Waluigi after ruthlessly pelting him with a green shell. This is when you most likely learned of the existence of Mario Kart 8, because up until that point, sales of the Wii U were slow and software support was still quite barren. There had been some flashes in the pan like The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker HD, and Super Mario 3D World, but nothing that really set the gaming industry ablaze. Nothing like the absolute craze of Wii fever that had dominated the mid-2000s anyway. So intrigued, you go to your local GameStop, get laughed at because you told them you own a Wii U, and you purchase the game for $59.99. You then take it home, slide that disc into your system, and enjoy Mario Kart 8 in full, glorious high definition for the first time ever in the series. Yes, this is how old Mario Kart 8 is, just to put things into perspective. Released May 30th, 2014, it has been an entire decade, almost 11 years actually at the time of recording this, since we've gotten our hands on an original, brand new Mario Kart game. To give you my personal perspective, Mario Kart 8 has existed throughout the entirety of my 20s. I was a sophomore in college at the time. This very YouTube channel that you're watching right now is almost as old as the game itself. So suffice to say, Mario Kart 8 has been out now for a good long while. I am shriveling to dust as we speak. The very light of my soul burns gently back into the ether as the earth slowly reclaims me, the sand trickling down my proverbial hourglass, acting as a stark reminder of my precious, waning time on this mortal coil. In other words, I'm 30 now, so clearly a lot of time has passed and I have a fair amount to say about this little game that could. And with the approaching release of Mario Kart World, I thought now would be the best time to really look back and give Mario Kart 8 one last salute before we enter into the next era of the series. Also, I'm curious, how old were you when Mario Kart 8 first hit the shelves? How much has your life changed since this game came out? Let me know in the comments. Alright, let's kickstart this off. So just as a side note, I'll only primarily be showing footage from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. My Wii U is currently in storage, and it would just kind of be a bit ridiculous to drag it out just to talk about a few small differences, so I hope that's alright with everyone. It doesn't matter much anyway, because regardless of what platform you play this on, this game looks incredible. These days, it's easy to take these graphics for granted since we've been with this game for so long, but at the time, back in 2014, this was a gigantic leap for the visuals of the series, and it still holds up today. Just to remind you, before this, we had Mario Kart Wii. Now, I consider MKWii to arguably have the best track design and unlockable content in the series, bar none. I mean, it gave us Funky Kong. How could you go wrong with that? Visually though, there was much to be desired, even back in 2008. Mario Kart Wii, and this is no hyperbole, is genuinely one of the ugliest looking first-party Nintendo titles ever released. The color palette is completely muted with brown and beige tones, and there's this weird visual smearing going on that looks like the screen is covered in Vaseline. Character models are blocky and jagged and don't look appealing at all, especially Donkey Kong, who looks practically diamond-shaped. And the UI is just so lazy. Like, the countdown at the beginning of races is this weird orange font that doesn't quite fit. The numbers in the timer look like they were ripped straight from a calculator. Simply put, this game's art design just feels all over the place and is incredibly inconsistent. Then you jump to 8 and the difference feels generational. It doesn't even compare. The colors are so vibrant and beautiful. The environments of these tracks are packed with so much granular detail that there are still some things I'm noticing now, even 10 years later. Backgrounds on courses have such minute detail in far-off areas that your car could never actually get to. In Toad Harbor, there's a statue of Princess Peach, modeled after the Statue of Liberty, with various sailboats nearby. In the far-off distance of Ribbon Road, there are toys strewn about the room the racecourse takes place in, with toy bitty buggies and various presents sitting on the shelves. And this attention to detail extends to the racers as well. Faces are not properly animated, and you get little touches like Mario's mustache fluttering in the breeze, and characters exchanging glances as they drive past each other. Listen, don't judge my boy Luigi here. The year prior to this game's release was, not kind to him. He had some things to work through. I remember the reaction to this giant visual leap was met with so much awe that some believed the game had PS4 levels of visuals, and even thought the resolution was in full 1080p HD. But in reality, the game only ran at 720p, and made smart usage of dynamic lighting and particle effects where it counted. See, that's the power of a timeless art direction. Even when the game was eventually ported to the Nintendo Switch, they basically left the visuals untouched, only bumping the resolution to a proper 1080p and including new minor details like adding confetti on the floor. Simply put, it's a beautiful game that stood the test of time for over a decade now, and that's a feat that can't be understated. This generational leap doesn't necessarily apply to the gameplay, though honestly in hindsight it didn't really need to. Despite having an immense lack of content and, Waluigi for some reason, Mario Kart 7 built a very strong foundation. The controls were fine-tuned to make handling a lot better, it introduced vehicle customization, and also added new underwater and glider sections to make courses more dynamic. Mario Kart 8 essentially takes all of this and refines it even further while adding in some new twists and features here and there. While I was a bit disappointed that the Wii U gamepad functionality was just limited to a giant horn on your screen back in 2014, Mario Kart 8 simply opting for a markedly improved refinement upon what was established by 7 is a decision that definitely worked out for the better in the end, given the Wii U's fate. It made porting the game directly to the Switch an easy task and made the gameplay more timeless by not being tied to a flashy hardware gimmick. Thus, the only twist the game really adds, quite literally, is anti-gravity. With anti-gravity, tracks can now be designed on multiple planes. What was once restricted to just being a slight hill or a ramp at best, can now be turned upside down, corkscrew, and even allow you to drive on walls, lending a new perspective and truly opening up courses to unique and innovative ideas. Or that was the intent anyway. Yeah, it's time to bite the bullet a bit here. While it's a cool gimmick at first, I don't think anti-gravity really adds that much. The camera is always set behind your racer, so even if the scenery suggests you're going up a tree or down a waterfall, or are completely upside down, unless you actively look around, the track still feels the same as any old Mario Kart track, with the exception of driving on walls, which only slightly alters your viewpoint. I kinda get why this is. I mean, it would be incredibly disorienting to play upside down, but if they can't change your perspective, they could have done more visually to make the gimmick more convincing, or at least going as far as including it in every track. There are some bright spots here, such as Shy Guy Falls, where you're racing up and then down a waterfall, Mario Circuit, which is a Mobius strip which directly inspires the game's logo, and Bowser's Castle, where rooms twist and turn, making good use of the new perspective. But the majority could have done a lot more. Take Twisted Mansion for example, which despite having twisted in the name, doesn't really feel that way. Most of the track takes place indoors, so despite the fact you're in anti-gravity, you really have no sense of where you are spatially until you emerge from the hallways. And then there are courses that only have one big anti-gravity section like Sunshine Airport, which is just a glorified ramp in the sky, or Dolphin Shoals, which just has a big slope turn towards the end. It just feels so arbitrary in these cases. Retro courses especially fall short because most don't even feature the anti-gravity at all. Out of the 16 retro courses featured in the base game, only 7 use the gimmick, and none of them use it to transform the course in a comprehensive way. It's mostly limited to having one small anti-gravity segment or just plopping them on the walls. There's not much thought here. I get that since these are retro courses, it would be more effort to rework them in such a dynamic way, but these courses were rebuilt from the ground up regardless, so adding in new loops, turns, or perspective changes would not have been that tall of an order here. My biggest disappointment, though, is this game's Rainbow Road. You would think with anti-gravity that they would have gone wild here, especially considering past courses contain loops and corkscrews and all sorts of things, but no, you don't really get any of that here. The best thing this course does is adding these 2 alternating routes in the second half of the track, which is a cool idea, but that's about it. How is it that Mario Kart DS, a game from 2005, has a better example of anti-gravity in its Rainbow Road than Mario Kart 8? I remember the days before this game's release, there was a developer interview where producer Hideki Kono stated, "One thing I do want to mention is Rainbow Road, that final course. We really want you to look forward to what we've done to it this time because it's something else. It's really spectacular. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see it." You can tell that nobody really cared for this Rainbow Road either because when the game was ported to Switch, they used the infinitely more impressive N64 Rainbow Road as the showcase. It's a shame because even though the actual race course is disappointing, it still benefits from the immense amount of environmental detail I mentioned previously. And to give it some credit, out of the 5 Rainbow Roads that are in this game, this one has the best setting in my opinion, taking place over Earth's atmosphere with blooper spaceships flying around. It's really breathtaking in its own way. So don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. I'm not saying these courses are horrible or even disappointing on their own. Every single one of these 48 courses in the base game and the original DLC are all supremely well designed and fun to play. And I'll also add this point to the retro courses as well. They do make great use of the new graphics engine, being faithfully remade with such immense detail and sporting the new beautiful lighting engine. It's just too bad that in terms of how they all use the game's main gimmick, I can't help but feel there's a lot of missed potential here. And okay, trust me, I'll stop harping on the negatives soon, but can I just add how useless vehicle customization is? This mechanic brought over from Mario Kart 7 is a really cool idea on paper, because the prospect of building your own card combination and seeing what works best together is genuinely cool at first. But the problem lies in the fact that none of it is particularly well balanced. Certain car parts just work better than others, which leads to the formation of the game's meta. Waluigi Wiggler Kart, Yoshi Teddy Buggy, and the Daisy Biddy Buggy are just some of the common builds I've seen online over the years. Once people find their favorite build, they rarely ever switch off of it. The only times I ever personally do so is when I'm streaming and I'm bored at looking at my current build. So while the game gives a wide variety of options at your disposal, rarely anyone ever uses it to its full potential. Furthering this issue, kart build metas are even more of a pain to deal with when you're playing in 200cc, a new engine class introduced in this game. This mode is unique because, for the first time ever, Mario Kart reminds you that the B button does indeed exist and asks you to brake at certain turns because of the ludicrous speed. So kart stats and character combos now matter even more so because your timing for braking each turn varies greatly depending on what build and character you have. It doesn't help that I find 200cc to be broken in general. Courses were definitely not designed with this speed in mind, as some turns are ridiculous to pull off unless your specific kart build allows for it. The fact you can even go out of bounds and clip through ceilings in tracks like Music Park just shows how unoptimized it is. It's not impossible by any means, because with enough practice and experimentation with the meta, it can be done. But I feel like there are just too many variables, and there's no one size fits all. Each kart build and character has different strengths and weaknesses on different tracks, so in my opinion, it just feels like trial and error, and I don't find that fun. Not to mention, these buildable karts pale in comparison to the pre-made kart designs of old. You won't see Donkey Kong driving an excavator or Dry Bones manning a tank. You get your body, your wheels, and your glider. That's it. I am actually really glad that they're doing away with this for Mario Kart World and going back to pre-built kart designs. I miss the creativity here. Alright, one last little nitpick, and I think this is the coldest take of them all, but the character roster in this game on release was beyond lacking. No Diddy Kong, King Boo, Birdo, Funky Kong, or Rob, but don't worry, we have all 7 Koopa Kids and 5 baby characters. One of which breaks the continuity of one of my favorite Mario games clean in half. Oh, poor Rosalina. You were such an interesting character once upon a time, now doomed to the fate of being a marketable plushie. Despite these nitpicks and shortcomings, there's very little to complain about here. Even if the course design fails to take full advantage of the anti-gravity gimmick, the courses themselves still feature some of the best designs in the series. So let's talk about some of my favorites. Starting with the base game, I really love Electrodrome. Yes, that's how it's actually pronounced. It's not Electrodome. That's kind of weird, isn't it? There's like some sort of Mandela effect going on there. I don't know what happened. It's colorful, has a really catchy synth EDM style music track, and it's one of the courses that make great use of the anti-gravity perspective, as you can see the racers who took alternate paths above you. Cloudtop Cruise has nods to Mario Galaxy music, so that's an instant plus. Then the Storm Cloud section is really fun to drive through with all of its hazards. Oh, and I love how the entire vine part of this course is revealed to sprout from this question mark block at the end of this section. It's just a really cool detail. And this game's Bowser's Castle is an absolute thrill, featuring several twists and traps that make great use of the anti-gravity, including this Bowser statue segment here that alternates punches on the sections of the road. This course is so much fun. And once again, the music is ear-meltingly good, featuring these slick metal guitar licks and rhythms. God, it just makes me want to headbang. If you can't tell, a common thread about most of my favorite tracks in this game is the music. Music has always been a really strong aspect of the Mario Kart series, featuring iconic and catchy tracks throughout its history. And Mario Kart 8 cranks that now up to 15 because for the first time in the series, the game's OST features fully orchestrated and big band compositions. When that sexy saxophone kicks in after emerging from the underwater section in Dolphin Shoals, you feel it. When the guitar and sax go into this alternating duet in Big Blue and you're soaring in high speeds, hitting all the boost pads and rhythm, it's gaming nirvana. This is, simply put, the best OST in the series, bar none. It's just so masterfully crafted to the point where it feels like it's physically a part of the race course. Speaking of Big Blue, can I just say, the original 2 sets of DLC released for Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U was probably some of the best value for quality of content we got in any video game I've ever seen. Sporting 16 both new and returning courses for only $11.99 or $7.99 if purchased individually. Seriously, it was only $12 for courses of this caliber that look just as good, if not better, than the base game. That's an insane value for what we got. This was also the first time Mario Kart branched out outside the Mario universe and brought in other Nintendo IP. Animal Crossing, The Legend of Zelda, and not one but 2 F-Zero courses were made for this game. I know that the prospect of a Nintendo kart has been hotly debated over the years, and this only served to blow that discussion wide open. I am personally against the idea of a full-blown quote-unquote Smash kart, but little collaborations and crossovers like this are a nice addition. They're fantastic too, with plenty of fan service and nods to their respective series. The Zelda track I would consider to be the weakest, as it feels more like a hodgepodge of different Zelda games. It could have used more variety, like a dungeon segment or a specific set piece from past Zelda games to really bring it home. As it is though, it's just a fun little ride through Hyrule Field with a cameo from the Master Sword. It's cute, but fleeting. Animal Crossing is really cool as it features 4 seasons and takes strong influence from New Leaf, so its identity leaves a stronger impression. This was also the first time we've ever seen these characters in HD, so as a fan of the series, I was ecstatic to imagine what a full-fledged Animal Crossing game in high definition would look like. We had to wait a few more years for that one, I dare not mention the devil, but still! The cream of the crop though are those 2 F-Zero tracks, with Big Blue being my absolute favorite. It's so cool to finally see F-Zero representation again after so long. I just hope this doesn't mean we won't ever get another F-Zero game again. Poor Captain Falcon ain't even in this. You know, despite the fact that these crossovers were put in to boost interest in the DLC packs and were the forefront of their marketing, it would actually be a huge disservice to the packs as a whole, because the original tracks that were introduced are even better than the crossovers. Dragon Driftway, as the name implies, has you drifting and making swift turns around the course while in anti-gravity, and this is one of the courses that put that new perspective to good use. I love the Asian Kung Fu theming on this one. This is also one of the few pieces of Mario media that mentions anything related to Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is kinda odd when you think about it. Wild Woods is another course that puts the anti-gravity to good use, doing the same kind of thing that Shy Guy Falls did. Right at the starting line, you can see Toad standing sideways, showing that you're going up the tree, so immediately you have a good sense of which direction you're facing. The course then goes on to lead you through a neat little Shy Guy village in the trees before sliding through a rushing waterfall. Just a really cool thematic course as a whole. Although, one of my favorite courses in all of Mario Kart 8 doesn't even use anti-gravity. Excite Bike is honestly the most underrated course in this entire game, and definitely doesn't get enough respect. Based off of the track builder featured in the original NES game it's named after, Excite Bike randomly generates elements like ramps, mudslicks, speed boosts, and more, making an entirely different course every time you play it. And honestly, this is such a cool and unique idea. It really makes it stand out amongst the vast amount of tracks in this game. Speaking of that, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. Yep, the Booster Course Pass introduced in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Honestly, this is a bit of a weird one. In a strange twist, Nintendo decided to go for full quantity over quality, and bring in 48 additional tracks into this game, doubling the track count to 96. To do this, however, they didn't remake them from the ground up, but instead poured it in and polished the Mario Kart Tour versions of these tracks. So all of that fine detail I was talking about earlier, all those fancy graphics polished by a timeless art direction, thrown completely out the window, leading to this jarring disconnect where half the courses look like they're from an entirely different Mario Kart game, and well, that's because they are. And forget about the anti-gravity gimmick, it's barely present or noticeable in this entire package, and is practically an afterthought in every course it appears in. It's not surprising that this is the case, but it's certainly a bit disappointing. So on one hand, this is a huge bummer, because imagining courses like Waluigi Pinball and Wii Rainbow Road remade in the Mario Kart 8 engine makes these feel like such a missed opportunity. But on the other, this game was starved for content for several years. One of my biggest requests for the Switch port of Mario Kart 8 was to introduce new DLC to revitalize the game that, at the time, was half a decade old. So with this, my wish was finally granted, but at an obvious cost. Just look at a base game course and a booster course side by side. It's night and day. Although, unlike others, I'm not too upset about this. At the end of the day, these courses still play fine for the most part, and while not all of them are winners, looking at you Sky High Sunday, ultimately, this is just more Mario Kart for a game that felt stagnant for most of the Switch's lifespan. And let's be real, the true reason why they didn't go all out in redesigning 48 tracks from the ground up is because the team behind the original Mario Kart 8 was hard at work on creating Mario Kart World. It's clear that a much smaller team was behind this entire production. And this DLC is pretty cheap all things considered, being $24.99 for everything or free if you have a Nintendo Switch Online subscription. That's honestly a great value considering what you get. It essentially doubled the course count, and it was enough to tide us over while they were hard at work in crafting Mario Kart World's vast open world. Considering this, I'm willing to let the drop in quality go. It's fine. My personal biggest issue though is that because of the OG DLC and this booster course pass, there are so many courses in this game that there's no way I could properly talk about all of them in this video. So what I plan to do is to follow this video up with an unscripted tier list video, where I give some quick-fire thoughts and rank them. So stay tuned for that. As a last note, I guess I should address the battle mode. It's no secret that the original battle mode in Mario Kart 8 was a humongous disappointment. If we wrote the 10-page essay the night before it was due was manifested into a mode, this is it. It featured only one mode, being Balloon Battle, and no original battle maps. Instead, battles are held on actual racetracks, which doesn't sound awful until you realize how big these courses actually are. Everyone just felt so spread out that you rarely encountered any opponents. It felt more like jousting than anything. 8 Deluxe, however, turned around and said, "I bet," and completely revamped the whole thing, featuring 8 new battle courses, one of which being based off of Splatoon to go along with the added Inklings to the roster, and 4 additional modes. Now alongside Balloon Battle, we have Shine Thief and Bomb Blast straight out of Mario Kart Double Dash, Coin Runners from Mario Kart 7, and Renegade Roundup, a Cops Robber style game new to 8 Deluxe. The battle courses are small and densely designed to really accentuate the chaos of battle mode, which, coming from the open tracks of the original iteration, is a very nice change. The only downside that I'm not really fond of is that every mode is once again timed, with no other options. I know this is primarily to keep online lobbies flowing smoothly, but come on Nintendo! If Super Smash Bros. Can allow you to do stock matches, why can't my Balloon Battle have a last man standing rule set? Just give us that and bring back Block 4 as a battle course and we'll be good! Come on! But you know, I have to say, all of my complaints and nitpicks, everything I find wrong with this game, really doesn't matter. Because it doesn't change the fact that Mario Kart 8 is an incredible, generation-defining game. Those sales numbers don't lie. Over 76 million copies sold is monumental. It's the 5th best-selling video game of all time, with the only Nintendo game beating it being Wii Sports. I remember reading this article from Polygon where the headline stated that it would possibly be the worst-selling game in the series. And you know, props to them for having the integrity to keep this article up, but damn, an L so big even Luigi can't fathom it. It's very easy to take this game for granted because it's been with us for so long, but that longevity cannot be understated. I've heard some people say that this game only did as well as it has because it was people's only option for Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch. And that is just such a major disservice to it. Games don't sell like this on pure accident. 10 million is an astronomical number for video game sales. It's insane that it managed to reach over 7 times that. It wasn't just because it was a great, tightly designed game, or that it was given a second chance on Nintendo Switch. It's because Mario Kart 8 is timeless, and its impact on the series' legacy will be felt for years to come. This game is a lot of kids' first Mario Kart game. Hell, it's probably a lot of their first Mario games in general. And in 20 years in the future, when they talk about the big Mario Kart game from their childhood, they'll most likely be referring to this one. I do not envy Mario Kart World. I'm sure it'll deliver that top-tier, high-quality multiplayer madness we all expect from the series, but needless to say, it has a lot to live up to. As a monumental landmark in the franchise, Mario Kart 8 achieved what some games could only dream of, selling over 10 million copies on the console only 13.4 million people owned. Then it kept us entertained and the world connected for 8 long years on Nintendo Switch as an evergreen of joy and fun. And thanks to the Switch 2's backwards compatibility, it will continue to do so for years to come. It defied more than the odds stacked against it. It defied more than our wildest expectations. It defied the very pull of gravity itself. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and clicking that like button. It really helps the channel out. And if you're interested in seeing me stream this game, I generally go live with it every Monday on Mario Kart Monday. I hope to see you there sometime. Well, that's all from me. Thanks again, and I hope to see you back here soon.